Alright, how's it going, everybody? This is going to be my start of June 2019 MLB power rankings slash tier list here. We got 6 tiers. 2 months is when I start to, you get the time frame where you can start to make real conclusions about teams, like when players are really overperforming the first month. You can say they're overperforming what their real talent level is. You can say the same about full teams, but once you get to 2 months in, you can kind of feel like this might be team's true talent level. So I think this is the right time where you can really start evaluating teams and what they should do going forward. And with the deadline coming up, this is the time where teams will kind of start thinking about, okay, maybe we should start buying or selling at the deadline. This is going to be the optimal time. I'll probably do this at the start of every, the next few months going through the rest of the season. So let's just jump right into it. We're just going to go with the way the tier maker is started. So we're going to start with the Phillies here. I've been impressed by the Phillies so far. Their starting pitching is their big question mark. The thought was Aaron Nola would be, the ace of that staff. He's been pretty solid. He started the season pretty badly, but he's coming back pretty strong. Nola's been good. Arrieta's been good. Zach Eflin's also been a big surprise. He's kind of locked down on the third spot in the rotation, and Nick Pavetta's disappointed, but he'll probably come back pretty solidly. The bullpen's, it's fine. It's middling. You have guys like Hector Neris, Juan Nicasio, Seranthony Dominguez, and Dave Robertson was their big pickup, is injured. But the Phillies have been pretty solid. Bullpen's been above average, I think. The starting pitch has been above average. And that lineup has really been... The top of their lineup is just really... It's hard to beat with McCutchen, Segura, Harper, Hoskins, Realmuto. That top five is really solid. I love McCutchen in that leadoff spot. He's so good at getting on base. And Harper, people have been kind of trashing him. Yeah, he strikes out a lot, but, he hits... he hits for power and he walks. You can't really ask for a whole lot more than that. He doesn't hit for a great average, but he hits a lot of doubles, a lot of home runs, and he draws the walks. People are afraid to pitch to him, and when you have guys like Realmuto hitting behind him, you're okay with him walking, So I'm going to put the Phillies in A tier. I think they'll be near the bottom of A tier. They're winning their division, but they're not, blowing anybody away. But they're a good team. I think they're probably going to make the playoffs, and, they look solid. All right, on to the Pirates. The Pirates, I'm going to drop in C tier here. They're around 500 right now. Their starting pitching staff has been pretty good. I thought it would be pretty good going into the season. Guys like Tyone Musgrove, Trevor Williams, who had a really solid season last year, and one more that's slipping my mind right now. But Tyone Williams, Musgrove, and they have one more good start, and Archer, Chris Archer, who's been pretty bad this season. Their lineup has been kind of pretty bad also. Josh Bell is a beast. He's definitely making the All-Star team this year. He's been hitting like crazy. Really, and also their bullpen has been kind of surprisingly bad. With Keone Kela, who they traded for at the deadline last year, he's been terrible. And there were some troubles leading up to their closer spot. Their closer Felipe Vasquez has been pretty solid, and he's a pretty great back end guy. So the bullpen kind of below average. Their starting pitching has been good, and their lineup is around average with one really great piece. They're a very middling team, honestly. I see them probably finishing 4th or 5th in the division, that really tight contested NL Central. I think C tier. They're a very middling team. They're very mediocre. They're hovering around 500 with a pretty bad run differential, I think. I don't think they're going to be near the bottom, around the middle of C tier, I think. The Padres. I was going to put the Padres in C tier, but ahead of the Pirates. The Padres have been a relatively big surprise. They've been hovering around 500 recently, but they started the season off relatively strong. Starting pitching, obviously Chris Paddock has been kind of a revelation. He's probably a front runner for Rookie of the Year so far, me with Pete Alonso. I think they're overperforming a little bit, but the lineup and the rotation is, outside of Paddock, pretty weak. They have Matt Strahm, Eric Lauer, Joey Lucchesi, and Nick Margevicius, I think. None of those guys really pop out at you. You're Strahm has been solid, I think, and Lucchesi had a good season last year. I think he's been pretty mediocre this year, though. And the lineup has been pretty solid. Tatis has been injured for a while. He was only up for 20 games or so, but in those 20 games, he proved that he deserves to be in the majors. He's been injured. He's probably going to be out for a couple more weeks, I think. lineup with Machado, Eric Hosmer, odd year Eric Hosmer always comes through. He's been very good. Machado's been not great, but pretty solid in his first year in San Diego. It's a good lineup with the back end of the lineup is pretty bad, but the top end you have Franmil Reyes, Manny Machado, Eric Hosmer, hopefully Tatis soon. The top end of the lineup is pretty solid. The back end of the lineup, they have depth issues. They're not a deep team, but they have a pretty solid core. I think this is definitely the start. I don't think they're making the playoffs this year, but going forward, they'll definitely be contenders the next few years with that core they have. I like the Padres. I don't think they're gonna blow anybody out of the water. I think you can make the argument they're even like low B tier, but I'm gonna put them in C tier for now. The Arizona Diamondbacks, I'm also gonna put in C tier. Between the Padres and the Pirates, I think the Diamondbacks. People thought the Diamondbacks were gonna really suck this year. I was not among them. I thought they would be okay. That lineup with guys like Eduardo Escobar, Ketel Marte, David Peralta, it's not, popping out at you, especially if they lost Pollock and Goldschmidt. But it's not a bad lineup. Like, they have people that can hit top to bottom. It's not like they're throwing scrubs out there just seeing what sticks, And then in that rotation with Greinke and Ray and Godley, who's been pretty bad. But Greinke and Ray is a good top in the rotation. I think Robbie Ray's having a pretty solid bounce back season. Yeah, the Diamondbacks are another pretty mediocre team along with the Pirates. Like, they're not going to be, popping. They'll at least put up competitive games with good teams. They don't really have any shot at making the playoffs, I don't think. But they're a fine team. They're definitely not like in full tank mode right now. We'll go with the Mariners. I'm gonna put the Mariners in D tier. They started the season off on a tear. They were insane, and they have been like the worst team in the majors since. They just have their lineup is bad. Their bullpen is really bad. I'm pretty sure. Like, they have no closer. They have they just don't have any consistency in the bullpen. They're closing by rotation and they just blow a lot of leads. The rotation's okay, I think. It's not like anything special. It's probably below average. Guys like Marco Gonzalez, they'll lock down like a rotation for the most part and be like pretty solid. Yusei Kikuchi's been kind of a disappointment, I think. He's been okay outside of a couple like really bad starts. He had won a couple yesterday, I think. But the Mariners are just not good. They don't have any pieces that really pop out at you. The trades they made they have not really come to fruition. Jay Bruce had a couple good weeks to start the season. He's been pretty awful since, I think. They just don't have any exciting pieces. They're not competing in that division at all, and I think they're a pretty solidly D tier team. They're definitely a step below the Padres, Diamondbacks, and Pirates. They have been so bad. They've lost I think they're 11-39 in their last 50, which I wouldn't be surprised is one of the worst in the majors. So yeah, they're a D tier team. We'll go to the White Sox, who've been kind of surprised. They're hovering around 500 this year. I'm kind of torn between the back end of C tier and the top of D tier. They're definitely worse than the Pirates. They're definitely better than the Mariners. So I think I'm gonna stick the Pirates in D tier I'll stick the White Sox in D tier for now. But they have a pretty exciting lineup. They have Jose Abreu, Tim Anderson, probably two deserving All-Stars. And that rotation has been really bad so far, but it has room to grow. Guys like Carlos Rodon, Reynaldo Lopez, all guys, and Luke Giolito, who's been much better this season than he was last season, all have room to grow. They're all probably are pieces going forward in that White Sox rebuild. Eloy Jimenez has been kind of disappointing so far. He started the season off pretty badly, but he's picking it up lately. The Sox just don't have a lot of depth. They're young core with Lopez and Rodon and Giolito in the rotation, with Eloy Jimenez, Tim Anderson, and Jose Abreu is going to be a free agent soon, but he's sort of in that mix too. Those cores are solid to go forward and build off of, but the team is just not good top to bottom. They've been surprising though. They're hovering around 500, which is probably more than what most people thought they would do. They have almost the same record as the Indians, so you can't really ask for too much more than that. They're a fun team to watch. I like the White Sox this season, but I think they're definitely solidly worse than the Pirates. You could make the argument they're deserving of the bottom of C tier, but I'm just going to put them to the top of D tier for now. Cincinnati, they're also going in C tier. The question is, we're definitely below the Padres and Diamondbacks, but the question is, are they going above or below the Pirates? I'm going to put them above the Pirates for now. I think the Reds also started the season really badly. That entire lineup was really cold to start the season. But actually, you know what? I'm a believer in the Reds. I'm going to put them above the Diamondbacks also. Definitely below the Padres. The Reds have that rotation that people thought was going to be a huge question mark in the season, but has been relatively solid. Luis Castillo has been excellent. They have Alex Wood, who's injured. Alex Wood hasn't pitched a single inning this season. Sonny Gray's been pretty mediocre, I think. Tanner Roark's also been pretty mediocre. But on the whole, it's Luis Castillo kind of carrying that rotation, but he's been so good. That lineup, on paper, looks really solid. Unfortunately, Joey Votto kind of sucks now, which always makes me sad, as he's one of my favorite players in the game. But the lineup on paper with Votto, Suarez, Puig, Winker, who's been really good, and Derek Dietrich, who's also been really good. Kind of a big surprise. He was really under the radar guy when he was in Miami. I think he probably should have been at least offered a major league contract, but he's been tearing it up with Cincinnati. He's kind of just selling out for power now. It's working out for him. Jose Iglesias, another offseason pickup for them, has also been really good. He plays, solid, very good defense at short, and he's hitting better than I think he has his entire career. So the Reds, I think it's slightly better than the Pirates and the Diamondbacks, just because they have, top to bottom, their lineup is good. They haven't performed very well as a whole, because that's including the entire first month of the season where they were pretty bad. But I think top to bottom, on paper, at least their lineup is really good. That their bullpen is pretty middling. You have Raisel Iglesias at the back end with, I think Robert Stevenson is pretty good, and a couple other solid pieces. Amir Garrett, he's solid. And then the rotation's also pretty middling. The pitching is pretty middling, but I like their lineup. And they're playing around 500 ball right now, and they're within 5 or 6 games of the division lead. So they have a shot. If I were a betting man and we're picking between the Reds or the Pirates to make a run at the division, since it is a really close division, I'd probably pick the Reds over the Pirates. All right, here we have the Cubs, currently leading the NL Central. I'm going to put them in A tier. I think they're near the back end of A tier. I'm going to put them... the Cubs and Phillies are kind of a toss-up. I would give a slight edge to the Phillies right now, I think. Actually, no, I'm going to put the Cubs ahead of the Phillies. The Cubs started off really badly. That rotation was looking very shaky the first few weeks of the season, sorry. And since then, they've been really good, actually. On paper, the Cubs rotation is, very good. You have Lester, Hendricks, Quintana, Darvish, and Chatwood, I believe. No, not Chatwood. I'm forgetting one person that's also good. I'm sorry. And then Chatwood is their swingman. But the rotation's good. It's been better than it was last season. I think people predicted the Cubs rotation would be pretty mediocre just because it was full of all these sort of aging guys that they're the best years behind them. And that's relatively true, but John Lester's picked it up a lot. He's been really good so far. That lineup is also top end is pretty good. You got Bryant, Rizzo, Baez, that middle three that are probably hitting 2-3-4 right now. I think that's probably one of the best in the majors, best 3 hitters. The leadoff spot's kind of iffy, I think, and then you have Kyle Schwarber, who's hitting in the middle of that lineup too. He'll hit for power, but he's kind of a sellout guy. The Cubs overall, I think when you take away that bad start that they had where they were looking really shaky, and I think their bullpen's pretty bad too, but if you take away that bad start, they have been one of the best teams as of late. I'll put them in A tier, slightly above the Phillies. The Phillies are probably end up near the bottom of A tier, and the Cubs will be near the middle of A tier, I think. I like the Cubs. I think they'll probably win the division. It'll be close. The Cardinals, Cubs, and Brewers are all very close in terms of talent level. Those two will fight each other for the division, but I think the Cubs will end up taking it. All right, on to the Royals. I'm between the top of F and the bottom of D. I'm going to drop the Royals in F tier for now. They're just not good. Top to bottom, they're just not a good team. You have exciting pieces on offense. You have Whit Merrifield, Adalberto Mondesi, and Hunter Dozier, who's kind of having a breakout season right now. And I like that they have a team identity. They have those speedy guys in Mondesi, Merrifield, Hamilton, and Greg Allen. Not Greg Allen, he's on the Indians. Terrence Gore. They have that organizational identity that they have going back to their really good teams in 2014 and 2015, where they just put the ball in play, they run like crazy, and they kind of see what happens. And I like that. But they're not a good team. Their starting pitching is bad. You had hopes that guy like Brad Keller, Danny Duffy, maybe Homer Bailey would have a bounce back season. They've all been pretty bad. I think Duffy's been all right, but outside of that, the rotation's not been good. And that bullpen is really bad, too. I constantly see Royals fans complain about how bad their bullpen is, and they wouldn't be this bad if their bullpen would just stop blowing games. It's unfortunate. I like the Royals. That 2015 World Series team is like one of my favorite teams of all time. But yeah, they're not good. They're not going to compete for anything. They really should be in full tank, and they are in full tank mode, and they should probably continue to be this season. They signed Merrifield to an extension, so I'm not going to trade him at the deadline, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see a guy like Danny Duffy's on kind of like an untradeable contract, so maybe they'll eat some of that and try to trade him. Mondesi's a part of the core going forward. Actually, I lied. They're not trading anybody. Alex Gordon, actually. I forgot. Alex Gordon's having a bounce-back season, too. They could try to trade Alex Gordon. Yeah, the Royals are not good. In that division where it's really a two-team race between the Twins and the Indians, they're not competing at all. They're probably going to finish like 100 losses. I'll say F tier. I probably should have distinguished the tiers. S tier is going to be teams that, like, I'll just rate them, will win their division. A tier will be like, will 90% make playoffs. B tier will be like playoff contenders. C tier will be like average teams that might like maybe sneak into a second wild card if they really overperform. Mediocre teams. Bad teams. Oops. Should I bring that up? Alright. Sorry. Bad teams. And F tier will be like just tanking teams. Tanking 100 loss teams. Okay. First S tier team here. I'm a believer in the Twins. I think the Twins, their offense is just off the charts good. Like, they just mash. Like, top to bottom. Every position they have guys that can just flat out hit. Behind the plate, Mitch Garver's been really good. At 30 of Miguel Sano coming back from injury, and he's been pretty good so far, I think. He'll probably pick it up. Shortstop, they have Jorge Polanco, who's probably deserving of all-star starter at shortstop. He's been insane. Second base, they have Jonathan Scope, he's been pretty solid. He hasn't been great, but he's been solid, and he can always hit. First base, they have Corona, I believe. I don't know if he's DHing. No, he's playing first because Cruz is DHing. So they have Corona first, who just hits homers. And he's a good hitter. Top to bottom, they just have good hitters. Eddie Rosario in left, he's very good. Byron Buxton in center, who's kind of he's having like a better season than he was last season. It's pretty similar to his 2017, I think. He just plays great defense, and he's fine at the plate, and he'll run the bases well. And then in right, they have Kepler, I believe, who just gets on base like crazy. And then a DH, Nelson Cruz, who mashes. Their team just top to bottom mashes. Their offense is so good, and their rotation's been overperforming too. Guys like Martin Perez and Michael Pineda, who he kind of wrote off as like over the hill, and Jake Odorizzi, you kind of wrote off as just having their best years behind them. Have been having great seasons. Jose Barrios is breaking out. I'm a believer in the Twins. I think they look a lot better than the Indians. I think they will win that division. Like, I would be very surprised. They're already like 10 games up. I'd be surprised if the Indians came back. Like, I think on paper at the start of the season, I would have given like a slight edge to the Indians. But after watching 2 months of play, the Twins have looked so much better than Cleveland. They're definitely deserving of an S-tier team. I think they have the best record in the majors right now. Great lineup top to bottom. Pretty solid rotation. Might be overperforming a little bit, but they're a good rotation nonetheless. I'm a big believer in the Twins. I think they'll win like 100 games, honestly. And maybe it's a stretch. They'll win 95 games in the division. That's my prediction there. All right. On to the Angels. I'm going to stick the Angels in C tier also. I don't know where in C tier. Probably below the... With Simmons injured, I'm not a big believer in the Angels. I'm going to stick them at the bottom of A tier, actually. Ohtani, Simmons, Trout is like a very solid position player core that they had. And Ohtani was injured this season. He can't pitch. Simmons is injured. He's going to be out for a while. And obviously, my Trout is Mike Trout. But outside of Trout and like Tommy La Stella, who's having that breakout season, the lineup is not good. And Justin Upton's injured also, who probably would be also a big help to that lineup. The lineup is not good outside of those two. Simmons was having like a solid season at the plate, and obviously he's injured in Simmons at short, so he's contributing a lot on defense, but he's injured. Their rotation has been awful. Like, they have not had a good rotation at all. Matt Harvey and Trevor Cahill, who have been terrible. They're like 9 ERAs. Andrew Haney just came back from injury, so hopefully he'll help that rotation out a little bit. But yeah, the rotation is not good. I don't know a whole lot about their bullpen. I think they have like Ty Buttrey, who's having a pretty solid breakout season. Other than that, their bullpen's not good. Yeah, the Angels don't look good. They're definitely not competing for that division. They're a pretty mediocre team. They're gonna hover around 500 like they have for the last few seasons. The Red Sox. I'm gonna put the Red Sox in A tier. I think they're definitely below the Cubs. I'm gonna put them below the Phillies too. Actually, they're A tier because they won the World Series in 108 games last year. They're obviously like a very good team, and they lost very little from that team that won the World Series. They just started so badly. Since that start, they've been a lot better, but they're still like around 500 right now. That's definitely not their true talent level. They're definitely better than their current record indicates. But and I think they'll probably make the playoffs on a wild card. I think the Rays or the Yankees are going to run that division just based on the start alone. But yeah, I like them at the bottom of A tier. They're a good team. I mean, top to bottom they hit. Maybe not top to bottom they don't hit. That's a lie. They have Bogarts, Betts, Benintendi, and Martinez at the top of their lineup. Very solid top of the lineup. First base kind of revolving door with Pierce and Moreland, I think. And Pierce has been really bad this season, actually, surprisingly. Behind the plate, Christian Vasquez is fine. Yeah, honestly, the top of their lineup is very good, but other than that, they're not like super great. And the rotation was underperformed at the start of the season, but Sale, Price, Eovaldi, who's injured right now, Porcello, who's been pretty solid. Again, I think Sale and Porcello were really bad to start the season, and then since then they've been getting a lot better. And then Eduardo Rodriguez, who people thought would kind of break out this season, but hasn't really. They're definitely underperforming their true talent level. That team is very good, and they're essentially the same team that won 108 games last season. You have to believe that they'll really pick it up, and they haven't picked it up. They started the season really badly, and they're above 500 now. So, yeah, I think the Red Sox will make the playoffs. I think it'll be in a wild card just because their start was so bad, and the rest of their division is kind of a meat grinder. But yeah, I like the Red Sox. I mean, they're not going to miss the play. I would be very surprised if the Red Sox miss the playoffs, honestly. I think in the AL, you're definitely looking at I'm kind of betraying the video, but you're definitely looking at 3 AL East teams making the playoffs. I think if you look at the makeups of the divisions right now, and probably Cleveland missing the playoffs, which is kind of a big surprise. But that's kind of my takeaway from this first half of the season. Toronto, I'm not just Toronto in D tier also. We'll go between Seattle and Chicago here. Yeah, that looked good. Toronto is just a team that is kind of in a rebuilding gear this year. Just calling up guys like Vlad Jr. and Biggio to really, inspire the fan base for future years, The rotation is it's not great. Marcus Stroman was started the season really solidly. I think he's kind of tailed off since then, but he's a good top-end guy. Aaron Sanchez is not great. Guys like Matt Shoemaker, who got injured. And I think Clay Buchholz is in the rotation, too. He's not exciting at all. It's just not a good rotation overall. And their lineup is, anemic. They've had one of the worst offenses in baseball, I think. Even with Vlad Jr., who is... I mean, he's going to pick it up. And you have to believe this is not, it's just when you come in the major leagues, you're not going to just start hitting like you have been in the minors. But he hasn't been as good as people are, projecting him to be. But he's picking it up a little lately. He started the season pretty bad. He started his, tenure in the majors pretty badly. But he's picked it up. He's, a good guy to have in the middle of that order. But... you have him and Justin Smoke, and outside of that, their lineup is pretty bad. The Blue Jays do not look good. They're definitely not competing in that division. Yeah, they're a below average team for sure. All right, the Nationals. This is hard because at the start of the season, I thought the Nationals would win the NL East, and that is not looking like it's going to be the case. But on paper, the Nats still are a really good team. They're definitely by definition, B tier is playoff contenders, and the Nats are not a playoff contender right now. Excuse me. This is hard. I think they're going to go in C tier, but where in C tier is the question, because they have a worse record than most teams in C tier. Their record is D tier, but their true talent level is definitely B tier, so I'm going to stick them in C tier as kind of a compromise. I'm probably ahead of the Angels. Probably ahead of the Pirates. Yeah, I'll stick the Nationals right here in C tier. The top end of that rotation is so good. They have the best top 3 in baseball with Corbin, Strasburg, and Scherzer. Anibal Sanchez in their 4th spot is fine. Their 5 spot is Jeremy Hellickson, I think. He's mediocre, but whatever. It's their 5 rotation. It's their 5th guy in the rotation. The lineup is good. Like, in theory, the lineup is good, but they've been injured a good amount. They're throwing guys like Gerardo Parra out there. Um, I shouldn't trash Gerardo Parra. He's actually been pretty good since he's been with the Nationals, but it's just the injuries have hurt them. They're underperforming. Their bullpen is the worst bullpen in history, which is like almost not an exaggeration. They have like one of the worst bullpens in history as of right now. Which doesn't their bullpen on paper isn't even bad. Like Sean Doolittle's a great closer. Guys like Kyle Barraclough and Trevor Rosenthal they picked up. I thought were good pickups. I mean, they have not been good pickups, but I thought they would be good pickups. On paper, they're fine. Wander Suero had a good like end of the season last year. People thought he'd really pick it up this season. On paper, the Nationals are good. They have not been good. They've been a bad team, but I think their true talent level is around like a 90-win team, so they'll probably pick it up a little bit of the course of the season and end the season around 500. But this start has just been so bad. It's so hard to come back from like this bad of a start. And you saw like the Dodgers do it last season, but like they were a 100-win true talent level team, I think. So it's hard to come back from this, and they're in a good division with Philadelphia and Atlanta and New York to an extent. So it's gonna be hard for them to come back and really compete for that division. I don't think they're gonna. I think this starts probably essentially knock them out of playoff contention, which is unfortunate, but they're a good team. They just started very badly and kind of unluckily. So yeah, it's gonna be very difficult for them to come back and make the playoffs. All right, Oakland. I'm gonna stick Oakland in C tier also, probably around right here, just below the Padres. C tier is getting really full. Yeah, Oakland has been okay. They started the season off like below 500. I think they're above 500 right now. They're just not an inspiring team in most aspects. Like they have that bullpen, which is pretty good, and it was really good last season, but they lost some pieces. And then their lineup, you have Matt Chapman, Matt Olson, who came back from injury. I'm actually not sure how well he's doing, but he's good on paper. Chapman, Olson, Chris Davis. Other than that, their lineup doesn't like inspire a ton of like, wow, that guy's great. You have Piscotty too. It's a good lineup. It's not like exciting though, They're just not an exciting team. And last season, I loved that team last season because they were not an exciting team, but they were really good and won 100 games. But this season, it's not looking like it's panning out the same way. And, I shouldn't speak too soon because around this time last season, like the Mariners were still winning the AL West and the Oakland was like around 500 and they ended up going on a tear and winning 100 games. So, but, like, this Oakland team is very similar to that last season's Oakland team, and I just don't see it happening again. Their starting pitching is just not inspiring. They have Sean Manaea coming back relatively soon, I think. Then who else do they have? Like, I can't even. I'm a bad baseball fan. Sorry, I can't even name who else is in the rotation. Like I think they have AJ Puck, Jesus Luzardo in the pipe. I don't know if they're coming up this season. They might be like September call-ups and like really get into it next season. But I don't see Oakland really competing for that division. I think the Astros are gonna run away with the AL West, which is unfortunate. I would have liked to see Oakland compete. I think like Oakland and San Diego are like borderline bottom B tier teams, but I just don't see either of them really competing for a playoff spot. Alright, first B tier team's gonna be Atlanta. I like Atlanta. I think they're definitely gonna compete for that wild card spot. I don't think their pitching just doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, right? Like that rotation with like Fultonevich, Teheran, Newcomb. Actually, Newcomb got moved to the bullpen, I think. And then all the young guys coming up like Soroka, Max Fried. It's just I still think that rotation's a year away from being really good. Like you have all those young guys coming up, like that are gonna come up and be really solid and really help that rotation. But it's probably gonna take them a year to really get into the swing of things in the majors. And Soroka's been excellent, but outside of that, the rotation's not been very good. And Soroka's definitely due for some regression. He's at like a crazy like 1 ERA right now. He's definitely not pitching that way the entire season. So I think that rotation it just does not feel like a playoff team's rotation, Bullpen's been pretty bad too. Yeah, like AJ Minter was supposed to be really good. He got like sent down to the minors. He was not playing well. Ridus Vizcaíno is out for the season with an injury and then got traded, so he's not even going to be a part of that team anymore. Yeah, I'm not a... And that lineup is good. Like, it's a very good lineup, right? You have Acuna, Freeman, Albies, Donaldson, Camargo. it's a good lineup, but it's not good enough to like carry the team into a playoff spot. And last season it was good enough to carry the team into the playoff spot because the rest of the division just collapsed, right? But that's not going to be the case this season. The Phillies are obviously a good team. The Nationals and Mets, I think, have gotten off to pretty mediocre starts, but I think they'll pick it up as we get into the second half of the season. They're not to be able to coast into a division title like they did last season because the Phillies collapsed. I don't think. I mean, the Phillies might collapse again, but I wouldn't bet on it. They're a good team. They're above average, but I don't. They just don't inspire a lot. That rotation is just not. It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in me. And I wouldn't be surprised if one more of their young guys like really broke out. But even then, they only have two like top end arms with Soroka and that one new player that broke out. I don't think Fultonevich is a top end arm. He had a good season last year, but there was a lot of indications he would regress this year. He's regressed a lot. He's not been good at all. So I don't know. B tier I think is a good spot for Atlanta. Colorado. Colorado's hard. On paper, I think they look better on paper than San Diego, but they've played worse overall. I saw a stat yesterday, they were like 27-27 with a 0-run differential. That is like the definition of a mediocre team. I'm going to take them in C tier here. C tier is getting a little full. I might have to like reorganize the tiers a little bit, but there's a lot of like pretty mediocre teams, so. Colorado. The lineup is a good top end, but it's not deep. Guys like Hampson and McMahon that they were excited to see come up, and like Tapia. I think Tapia's been pretty good, but Hampson and McMahon has not like really performed as what they were hoping to. Daniel Murphy, who I thought was a great offseason pickup, has just been injured and not that good. And you have Blackman and Arenado and Story, who you expect them to perform, and they have been performing for the most part. The rotation, Marquez has been good. Marquez has had like a good follow-up season to that like beast of second half he had last season, and Freeland has just sucked. He's been like one of the worst pitchers in the major leagues, even when you factor in that he's pitching in Coors. And he had like a Cy Young season almost last year, and he's been terrible this season. So I mean, people expect a regression, but he's been awful. The rest of that rotation is like pretty middling too. Like Senzatella's fine. You're not excited for an Antonio Senzatella start. And who else do they have? Honestly, I don't even know. John Gray's been pretty good actually, I think. But it's just not. They don't seem like a playoff team. When they're in that division, they need to like. The Dodgers just have such a stranglehold on that division that it's so hard for I think San Diego has a much better core going forward, and a much better chance to end up like competing with the Dodgers in the future seasons. But this season, the Rockies just don't even seem like they're close. Like last season, they needed almost everything to go right to compete with the Dodgers, and almost everything did go right, and they still like just barely lost out on the division in the one-game playoff. And the Dodgers look to be like firing on all cylinders this season. The Rockies are not. I don't foresee the Rockies competing for a playoff spot again. And, it's unfortunately looking like last season might be the last time the Rockies are in the playoffs for a while, which sucks because, I don't know. I like the Rockies, but yeah, I don't see them being very successful this season going forward. All right, the Yankees. Now, by the definition I have of S tier, I can't put the Yankees in S tier because the Red Sox and Rays are going to compete for the division. I definitely can put them in. I would put them top of A tier. The Yankees have been really impressive so far. They've had so many injuries. They've had their ace of the rotation, Severino, injured. He hasn't played yet this season. Gregorius is injured. He has not played this season. Judge has been out for most of the season. Stanton's been out for most of the season. Hicks has been out for most of the season. That's like the core of their lineup, right? Hicks, Stanton, Judge. That's like the middle of it. That's like the meat of their lineup. And they've all been injured. And they still won a ton of games. Like, it's actually kind of nuts when you think about it. Like, they're winning their division. I think they're like a half game or a game ahead of the Rays right now. They're winning the division. They have one of the best records they have like a top 5 record in baseball. And their best players have all been injured. It's kind of nuts. And their rotation has been like pretty good. Domingo Germán has been a revelation. He's been really good. Paxton and Tanaka have been solid. Happ has been kind of bad, but he'll probably pick it up. He's a veteran type guy. He's an important part of that rotation. So going forward, you have Severino hopefully come back like around the All-Star break. So you have Severino, Tanaka, Paxton, Happ, and Germán, who will probably keep that rotation. He deserved to keep that rotation spot. Yeah, that's a very good rotation. I would be happy taking that into a playoff series. So I think the Yankees will almost definitely make the playoffs. They will definitely make the playoffs. They're a very good team, and they're only going to get better. They've had guys like Gio Urshela and like Cameron Maybin, like DJ LeMahieu overperforming. They'll come back down to earth, but they've only needed to overperform until the starters have come back, right? Like, it's okay if they're overperforming now, and if they come back to earth later because they have, bona fide stars replacing them. Yeah, the Yankees are going to make the playoffs, almost for sure. I can't put them next year because I don't think they will definitely win their division, but A tier for sure. They're a very good team. I think they'll definitely, if not win the division, I think they're a favorite to that division as of right now, but if they don't win the division, they're definitely getting wildcard one. And how hype would a Yankees-Red Sox wildcard? That would be very hype. That would be very exciting. Miami is F tier. They're terrible. Definitely below the Royals. They're just... Their lineup's anemic. They have nobody that can hit. They have like Neil Walker, who's been fine. Starlin Castro has been pretty mediocre. Brian Anderson, he's like a potentially solid piece going forward. Lewis Brinson, who was their like big return with the Christian Yelich trade, just like continuing to underperform. The rotation, Caleb Smith has been pretty good. Sandy Alcantara has been like, and you have like Sandy Alcantara and Paulo Lopez who've like flashed ace level stuff, but they're just not consistent. The rotation overall is not good behind Caleb Smith. And I don't even know anything about their bullpen. I assume it's pretty bad. Yeah, the Marlins are just terrible. I think they have the second worst record in the majors right now behind the Orioles. And they have like that 6-game win streak, and if you factor that out, they're like by far the worst team in baseball. They'd have like 15 wins or something like ridiculously terrible. So, yeah, the Marlins are not good. They're definitely below the Royals. And the Royals are at least like kind of have exciting players that you're like, oh, you could kind of like rely on some Royals players to like hit at least. It's not the same with the Marlins. All right, the Cardinals. I'm gonna put the Cardinals in B tier. They've been really bad as of late. They're actually below 500 right now because they've been on this huge skid throughout May. But on paper, that team is very solid. They had a great April. They were winning the division throughout April, and they've kind of sucked in May. Paul Goldschmidt's kind of come back down to earth. He had a really solid start to the season. He's been like pretty middling since, but he's Paul Goldschmidt. He'll pick it up for sure. That lineup with Goldschmidt, Ozuna, Carpenter, DeYoung is a very good lineup. They hit top to bottom with like Molina and Wong and Bader at like the back end of that lineup. They hit top to bottom. They're a good lineup. The starting pitching is kinda like Michaelis has been not that good. He had a really great like return to the majors last season. Michaelis has been pretty bad. I think Flaherty's been pretty mediocre too. Those two would be like their aces. Carlos Martinez is in the bullpen, and like I don't know, the pitching staff has not been good. It's underperforming for sure. Like Michael Wacha's been awful. Yeah, the Cardinals. It's hard because that lineup is really good, and this pitching staff on paper also should be pretty good, but they've been underperforming a lot, at least in May. I think their true talent level is somewhere between their April performance and their May performance, probably leaning closer to their April performance. I think they'll finish around like 86 to 88 wins, which should be enough to at least compete for a wildcard spot in that division. And that division is so tight, right? Like Chicago and Milwaukee and St. Louis are all so close, and you have the Reds and the Pirates who are not that far behind them. Yeah, the Cardinals, they're just... It's hard because that lineup is good, and even that lineup hasn't been that good, like, overall. Carpenter's been underperforming. Goldschmidt's been sort of underperforming. DeYoung is kind of slumping after that great start he had. Yeah, I don't know. I think B tier is the right spot for the Cardinals. I think they'll compete for a playoff spot. I don't think they're like a lock for the playoffs by any means, but they'll compete for a spot, and they're definitely better than like an average team. I'm gonna put the Indians in B tier also. The Indians have been pretty disappointing so far. A big part of that is like Jose Ramirez is like hugely underperforming, and like some of the guys they got to like patch up that lineup that they lost a lot of pieces of. Guys like Jake Bauers have like not been that good. And Bowers is like a piece that I think is going to be good going into the future. I thought he would be pretty good this season, but he just hasn't been. So that lineup doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, You have Lindor and Ramirez, and outside of that, it's just not that great. And Carlos Santana has also been very good. Outside of those three, it's not an exciting lineup. It's very good middle three in their lineup. Outside of that, it's just not a good lineup. Their rotation has dealt with injuries. underperformance. Carrasco's kind of underperformed. Kluber's been injured, and Clevenger's injured. The big sell on the Indians at the start of the season and why I thought they were going to win that division was the rotation was just godlike, right? You have Kluber, Bauer, Carrasco, Clevenger, Bieber, by far the best full five rotation is by far the best rotation in the majors. I don't think you can even argue that it was the best top five guys rotation in the majors. The Clevenger and Kluber are injured. Carrasco's kind of underperforming. Bauer's playing well, but not as well as he was last season, and Bieber's pitching well. The rotation just hasn't been good enough to offset the fact their lineup is not that good, and the bullpen's been kind of bad as well. I think Hand has been very good at the back end, but other than that, it's not a great bullpen. It's just it's unfortunate because that rotation is it's so good, and I just wish the Indians went out and Can you imagine if they just re-signed Michael Brantley? It seemed like such an easy decision for me for the Indians front office. I can't believe that they let Michael Brantley get away on that 2-year deal to the Astros because he should be on that team. Yeah, I guess hindsight's 20/20, but this team with one more bat would be so much better in my eyes. Yeah, the Indians are B tier, and they're still a contender. That rotation is good enough to make them contend. No matter how bad that lineup is, every single top to bottom, those five guys can keep them in every single game. But it's up to the lineup to really push them over that hump, and they haven't so far. I still think on paper they're a good team. I'm gonna put them in the bottom of B tier. I think they're definitely an above average team, and they're playing around 500 ball right now. But I still think they're an above average team. I don't think they're gonna compete with the Twins. The Twins just seems like the Twins have played just much better baseball so far this season. All right, Milwaukee. I'm also going to stick Milwaukee in B tier. I think they're just slightly... I think they're slightly above the Cardinals and slightly above the Braves. I'll stick them on top of B tier. With Milwaukee, you have a team that they just need starting pitching. They have a killer bullpen, and even with Corey Knebel getting injured for this entire season, he's going to be out for the season. It's still a killer bullpen. And then you have a lineup that top to bottom they hit. You have Kane and Yelich at the top, both just great players. Yelich is having their MVP type season. In the middle of the order, you have Baron, Moustakas, Aguilar, and Grandal. All had the potential to pop off for 30 home runs in a season. And Aguilar's been pretty bad so far this season, but I think he'll pick it up. And the back end of that lineup is Orlando Arcia, who we thought will break out for the last 3 seasons, and he hasn't. But he's still a good defensive shortstop, and he hits in spurts. And Hernan Perez, who's a good utility guy. Top to bottom, they have a very good lineup. It's just their starting pitching is just so lacking. And so far, you've had people are hoping Corbin Burns, Freddie Peralta, and Brandon Woodruff, 3 young guys that were in the bullpen last season, to really pick it up and really contribute to that rotation. And so far, only Woodruff has really lived up to that. And Ulysses Chacin, who was their ace last season, has just not been good. They had one more piece. What's his name? Guy with glasses. Zach Davies. He's been good so far this season too. I think he started rough really well and he's kind of cooled off since then. But it's just they need that arm. They need an ace arm. They need Dallas Keuchel. That's what I'm saying. They should just sign Dallas Keuchel. I think if they sign Dallas Keuchel, they have a much better shot at winning that division than they do if they don't. I think they're at around similar to the Cardinals, they're around an 86 to 88 win team also. But I think their pitching is better than St. Louis, which is why I give them the edge. But the Brewers are good. They're a good team. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if they made the playoffs, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they missed the playoffs. So the race in the NL is going to be much tighter than it is in the AL, I think. With that logjam at the top of the Central, the Braves and Phillies and probably the Mets and Nationals sort of jostling around for that second wild card in the NL East. I have no. I'll save my predictions for the end, but the prediction is going to be hard. Let's move on to Detroit. Detroit, I'm going to say they're between the top of F and the bottom of D. I'll put them at the bottom of D, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit. They're just not an exciting team at all. They have Matt Boyd in their rotation, who's having a good season. And then their lineup has Miguel Cabrera, who's been okay. Nick Castellanos, who's been kind of underperforming. Like Nico Goodrum, who's been fine, and like who else? Like Josh Harrison, who's been like hitting pretty badly. It's just not an exciting team. Actually, I cheated. I put them in F tier. They're just not a good team, top to bottom. No aspect of their team is like above average, and they're just not. They're tanking. They're pretty much in full on tank mode, and I like debated putting them in D tier because like maybe they won't lose 100 games because that division is so bad. But yeah, they're just not good. It's unfortunate. They're just not a good team though. Like top to bottom, they don't hit, they don't pitch well. Outside of like their top guys, Matt Boyd, and I'm pretty sure their bullpen's pretty bad too. Yeah, it's just not an exciting team. All right, the Dodgers are also in S tier. I'm gonna put them slightly above the Twins here. The Dodgers have been really good this season. Their lineup is ridiculous, even like without AJ Pollock, who's injured, will probably be injured for a while, and even when he wasn't injured, he was terrible. Corey Seager, who hasn't really been hitting all that well. But like, top to bottom, the lineup is so good. In the leadoff spot, you have Jock Peterson, who's really not your prototypical leadoff guy, but he just mashes against righties. And you just platoon him against lefties. The team is so deep and has such a great bench. So you have Peterson, and then you have like Seager and Turner in that 2-3 area. Seager's underperforming so far, but he's started to pick it up lately. I think he's like above 100 WRC plus for like the first time in the entire season, like recently. Just on Turner, who's been good. Not like exciting good, but he's been good. And Cody Bellinger, obviously, like he's your MVP frontliner right now. And it's too early for that kind of talk, but like he's been by far the best player in baseball so far. Even better than like Yelich and Trout. Yeah. Just the top of their order is really good. And then you go down to the middle and the bottom of their order. And they're not like superstar type guys, but they just hit, like Chris Taylor, who has slumped at the start of the season, but he's picking it up. You have Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez has been he started off really hot and he's cooled off since then, but he's been solid. And then guys like Alex Verdugo, who's probably should be in more rookie of the year talks than he is right now. And on the catcher spot, you have like the Barnes Martin, like 50-50, who've both been like serviceable. The offense they have the potential to pop off. I don't even talk about Max Muncy, who's also been like really good. Like people thought he might, and he's definitely regressing from his like insane season last year, but he's still really good. The lineup just is so good, and then the starting pitching is also so good. You have Ryu, who's pitching like a Cy Young winner right now. He's like a 1.5 ERA. Clayton Kershaw, he's Clayton Kershaw. Like he's not dominant Clayton Kershaw anymore, but he goes out there and gives you like a chance to win every single night. And the Dodgers have won 16, I think it's 15 or 16 straight games, going back to last season that Clayton Kershaw started. He goes out there every night and gives you a chance to win. Rich Hill, who's just that veteran, crafty type guy, who go out there and give you good innings, and he won't like dazzle anybody, he'll go out there and give you good innings. Kenta Maeda, who's just solid. And then you have Walker Buehler, he has the stuff. He's been kind of like below average so far this season. People thought he'd really break out this season. Like last year had the great rookie season. He should break out into a Cy Young winner this season. It hasn't happened. His command has been kind of bad so far this season. He's probably been the worst starter in the rotation so far. But he'll definitely pick it up. He has the stuff. He has the makeup. That rotation is so good. It's definitely like a top 3 or 4 rotation in baseball. And you have the bullpen, which, you have Jansen at the back end, who's been good, not great. And the rest of the bullpen's been kind of bad, but on paper, it's not a bad bullpen. You have guys like Baez, who has been good. Flora, who's also been good. Then like Scott Alexander, who is a good pitcher. He hasn't really shown it so far this season. He hasn't been terrible. He's like a 3-something ERA. He's not like bad by any means, but he hasn't been pitching well. The bullpen, if they just add one more bullpen piece at the deadline, this is like a front runner to win the World Series. Just because I think the other like top teams in baseball are all in the American League, so the Dodgers have like the most direct path to the World Series. If I were a betting man, I would pick the Dodgers to win the World Series just because of that. Like they have a better chance to win their league than any of the top AL teams do because they have to all play against each other. The Dodgers just look really solid overall. I think they're the best team in the National League for like by far for sure. And I think you definitely make the argument for the best team in baseball. The bullpen's a little shaky, but outside of that, they have a really solid top 5 lineup, top 5 rotation. They're firing on all cylinders. I think the Dodgers they're definitely deserving of last year. They're definitely going to win that NL West division. They're already like 7 games up, and none of the other teams are super like inspiring confidence they could like have a chance to come back. And they've already like beaten the Padres a bunch. The Rockies, they haven't played the Rockies a single time, but I think they're just a much better team on paper than Colorado is. Yeah, the Dodgers are almost definitely winning that division. They're definitely deserving of the S tier placement. Another team deserving the S tier placement is Houston. I want to put Houston slightly above Los Angeles, actually. So we're going to go Houston 1 and Los Angeles 2. Those are going to be my 1 and my 2 in my power rankings. Houston, what can I say about Houston that hasn't already been said? Because their offense has been, like, historically good. Like, they've been insane. And even with George Springer injured, Carlos Correa's injured, Jose Altuve coming back from injury, they've still been insanely good. Which is so crazy to think about because those are, like, their top 3 type guys. George Springer was having, like, an MVP type season before he got injured. He'll be out for, like, a few weeks, I think, but it's nothing too serious. So you have, like, Carlos Correa, who's going to be out for a few weeks because his girlfriend had sex with him too hard. That's probably what happened, by the way. Jose Altuve, who's kind of underperforming, and he came back from injury. Outside of that, they have, like, Michael Brantley, who's raking. They have... it's not even that they have... Like, Michael Brantley is raking, but outside of that, it's just a bunch of guys that are hitting well. Nobody that's hitting, like, out of this world well, right? You have, like, Robinson Chirinos, who's, like, has ended up being, like, a very solid pickup. And then you have, like, Josh Reddick, who's hitting well. Tony Kemp, who's hitting well. These are guys that you're not blown away because they're not superstars, but they're all, like, really solid role players. They're hitting above average, like Aledmys Diaz. These are guys that, like, they're not household names by any means, but they just hit. And that rotation with Cole and Verlander at the top has been so solid. Cole's had, like, kind of a middling ERA, but he leads the league in strikeouts. He has, like, the best stuff in baseball, I think. He's just blowing batters away, really. And then Justin Verlander, who's Justin Verlander, like, it's pretty... The last 2 seasons have not been a fluke. Like, this is just who he is. He just throws 96 at, like, however, he's, like, 37 or whatever. He's just a great pitcher. And he's so good. Like, what can I say about Justin Verlander? Like, he's just way better than anybody thought he would be after he saw, like, that career downturn. The top 2 in the rotation are very good. The rest of the rotation is a little iffier, but, like, they've made it work. Like, they're hardly a bad rotation. You know, they have, like, Corbin Martin. I think that's his name, Corbin Martin. They called up. He's been okay. Colin McHugh ended up getting sent to the bullpen. I thought he would be, like, a solid piece, but he hasn't been that good. And then, like, Brad Peacock, who's fine. He's pretty solid. Like, it's not an exciting back end of the rotation, but they get the job done. The bullpen is also really good. You know, they have Roberto Osuna at the back end. Brian Presley, who's been excellent, like, insanely good, dating back to, like, when he got traded to the Astros. He's been, like, the best reliever in baseball. And then, like, Hector Rondon. I think it's Carlos Rondon, I think, not Hector Rondon. Has been very good also. So, you have, like, a solid bullpen, you have a solid rotation, and just an insane lineup. And I think I read somewhere that, like, both the Houston and Minnesota offenses are on pace for, like, a top 5 offense of all time, which is kind of crazy. I think Houston is probably the most complete team in baseball overall. They had that great lineup, great top of the rotation, pretty solid back of the rotation, very good very solid back end of the bullpen, and, like, pretty solid middle, like, bullpen. They're the most complete team in baseball. They're playing in, like, kind of a gimme division is what it looks like. They're definitely winning that division by a lot, and they're definitely going to win, like, 100 games and make the playoffs in my eyes. All right, give me a sec, sorry. Sorry, coming down from a bit of a sickness. Kind of a sore throat, sorry about that. Tampa Bay. I'm going to put Tampa Bay in A tier. Where in A tier is the question. I'm definitely gonna reorder the tiers. I'm pretty confident in most of my tier plays. I'm definitely gonna reorder them though. We'll put Tampa Bay. I'm gonna put Tampa Bay here for now, right behind New York. They've been really impressive. Like, their rotation is very good. Even with Glasnow injured, he was, like, probably a Cy Young frontrunner while he wasn't injured. They have Blake Snell, who won the Cy Young last season. Charlie Morton, who's been really great. And then in the pipeline, they have, like, Brendan McKay and Brent Honeywell, who are, like, both top pitching prospects. I don't know if they're coming up this season, but if they are, I think Honeywell is probably. There's just another great arm they have in that rotation. An excellent bullpen with, like, Diego Castillo and Jose Alvarado and other good pieces. And the lineup has been hitting, you know? You have, like, You have sorry, his name is blanking right now. Austin Meadows, who's been excellent. He was injured for like a short period, but he's been one of the best hitters in baseball outside of that injury. Tommy Pham, who's hitting like crazy. You have other good pieces like, God, this is the testament to like the Rays just make it work. Like I can't even name most of the guys in order offhand, and I definitely know who they are. I just can't name them offhand. But like, these not household guys, but they just make it work. That front office is so impressive, and they're winning. Like I think they're like a game behind the Yankees as of right now, but like that's an accomplishment in itself with how well the Yankees have been playing. The Rays just don't stop. Like this is just a very impressive team powered by a really impressive front office, and I'm a big believer. I think they're making the playoffs. I think I'm a buyer on the Rays. I think they're going to make the playoffs, probably in a wild card, but I wouldn't be insanely surprised to see them win the division either. I'm a big believer in the Rays. I like them a lot. They're definitely A tier. San Francisco, I put in D tier. I'll put in D tier right behind the White Sox, I think. They're just not good. Like, their lineup is just, it's not that bad on paper. You have, like, Longoria, Posey, Belt, Crawford, Panic. But these are all, like, guys that are past their prime. Maybe with the exception of Panic. But, like, they're all past their prime. They're all declining. The lineup is just not good. And combine that with the fact that they're in, like, a ballpark that just totally suppresses offense. Like, it's just, their offense is terrible. The starting staff is, like, it's pretty bad. Like, on paper, the Giants don't seem like that bad of a team, but, like, when you put it into practice, like, Bumgarner, I think Cueto's still under Bumgarner, Samardzija, guys that are past their prime. The entire team is just past their prime, and they need to sell for sure. Like, I think I have a lot of faith in Farhan Zaidi that he's just going to sell because, like, they just need the rebuild. They're too old. They have too many bad contracts on the books. They're definitely not competing this season. Like, they're already way under 500. The best part of that team with the bullpen with like Will Smith, Tony Watson, and I think what's his name, Reyes Maranta, all like pretty solid pieces at the back end of the bullpen. They'll probably like flip at the deadline for some good prospects, but it's just like the lineup and the rotation just have not been playing well. It's mostly the lineup actually. The rotation's been pretty okay, I think, but the lineup is just not good. They just don't hit. So I don't know. The Giants are not a good team. I really wouldn't be surprised if they finished last in the NL West. Like, they're just not a good team. And then Texas. Texas has been a pretty big surprise. I think they're above 500 right now. I think they're definitely deserving of C tier, but where is the question? Let's see here. I'm definitely reordering C tier. I'm not happy with my order I have in C tier. I'm reordering at the end of the video. I'll put Texas right here for now, I think. Texas has been good. Like, their offense is just very solid. You have Joey Gallo, who's having like a breakout type season, and then like Renato Dor, who's okay. It's another offense that really is not household names, but they get the job done, kind of similar to like the Rays offense or like the Twins offense. Not to the same extent, obviously, but like it's a similar idea. And then the rotation with like Mike Minor, who's having a great season. He had a good season last year too. It's not an exciting team. Top to bottom is not an exciting team at all, outside of like Joey Gallo, who mashes. But they just get the job done. They're above 500 right now in like a pretty difficult division with like the Angels, the A's, and the Astros. Like the Rangers, they're not going to compete for a playoff spot by any means, but like they're much better than I or most people thought they would be. And I wouldn't be surprised if they finish the season around like 78 to like 82 wins, like in that range. They seem like a pretty solidly average team. So, credit to the Rangers. That's like better than I thought they would be. All right, the New York Mets I'm also going to put in C tier. Where in C tier is going to be a little hard. I think I'm going to put them... They're definitely a C tier team. Probably near the top of C tier. Definitely above the Nationals. Probably above the Reds. They're probably above the Rockies also. I like them in that spot in C tier. With the Mets, again, you have a very solid on-paper rotation with DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler, Matz, and whoever in their fifth spot. I think it's Jason Vargas. The top three in the rotation, DeGrom's been good, not great. Syndergaard's been good, not great. Wheeler, I think, has been kind of disappointing so far this season. when you kind of thought after last season all three would be like Cy Young type pitchers. They've all been kind of disappointing in that sense. The lineup has been okay. On paper, I thought the Mets would have like a very solid shot at this division. At the start of the season, I thought the NL East would be a total toss-up because the Mets, the Nationals, the Braves, and the Phillies are all looked really good on paper. With the Mets, they're like a few games below 500 right now, I think. The lineup has been sort of underperforming. Jeff McNeil, who was supposed to be like a big piece of that lineup, is injured, and he was like having a great season. He was like the catalyst for that lineup, just getting on base like crazy. Pete Alonso, the rookie, has been having a great season. He hits home runs like crazy. Michael Conforto has been having a good season. And then, like, the offseason pickups have just been underperforming. Wilson Ramos hasn't been hitting well. Robinson Cano has not been hitting well. And then, like, their other big offseason pickup, Edwin Diaz, has been pretty solid. But, like, there's only so much effect a closer can have on the outcome of a game, you know? The Mets have just been underperforming top to bottom. The bullpen has not been good. And they got, like, Familia and Diaz to help with that bullpen. But even still, it's not been a good bullpen. Like, the Mets, and I was a smart man, okay? The Mets look good on paper, but I knew they would be the Mets and not win the division. But, yeah, they just seem like a pretty average team overall, despite being solidly above average on paper. They're just performing very mediocrely, and I don't think they're going to compete for that division. And then the last team is going to go in last place, the Orioles. The Orioles are just bad at everything. Like, at least the Marlins have, like, some exciting pieces, like, young pieces in the rotation with, like, Smith, Alcantara, and Lopez. The Orioles don't really even have that. Like, it's just a team thrown together of, like, 4A players for the most part. And you have a couple, like, solid guys, like Trey Mancini's having a good season. Like, Jonathan Villar, who's, like, a pretty solid player. Outside of that, though, like, there's nothing to get excited about. They're definitely losing 100 games again. And for a little while, they actually get a better record than the Marlins, but I think they're back to worse than the Marlins. They have the worst record. They're just not a good team. Can't really say a whole lot more than that. Top to bottom, they're just not a good team. Alright, so here's the tiers. I'm pretty confident in this tier list. I'm going to reorder within the tiers, though. I like Houston, Los Angeles, and Minnesota in S tier. I like that. In A tier, New York, Tampa Bay, and these three you can probably switch around. These three are all probably pretty interchangeable with Chicago, Philadelphia, and Boston. Yeah, I'm going to switch Boston up here, actually slightly above the Phillies. Yeah, I like this A tier. 3 AL East teams. I think all three of these will definitely compete for playoff spots, and all three of them will end up making the playoffs. So you have your 5 playoff teams in the American League with Houston, Minnesota, and one of New York, Tampa Bay, and Boston winning the AL East. I think it'll probably be New York winning the AL East, but it could go either way. It could go any of those 3 ways. So I think my prediction, I'll do playoff predictions after all this, actually. B tier, Milwaukee, Atlanta, St. Louis, and Cleveland. I like this ordering. I think Milwaukee's the best team in this group of 4, and Cleveland's probably the worst. I like that ordering. Alright, C tier. I'm pretty confident that all these teams are all just, like, average teams. I'm going to reorder within this, though. I don't think San Diego's the best team among these. This is actually hard. All these teams are so, like, mediocre. Let's see. I'll bump up the Angels to around the middle of this pack, I think. Like, right around here. Probably better than the Nationals. The pitching is so bad, though. Probably the Pirates up a little bit. I don't think Arizona's the worst, though. Like, let's see. Like, it's hard. I don't think San Diego was, like, that good, but I think they are better than all the rest of these teams. I think you can make the argument that Oakland's, like, better than the rest of these teams. Yeah, all right. San Diego, Oakland, New York, Colorado, Cincinnati, Anaheim, Pittsburgh, Washington, Texas, Arizona. Okay, I like that. I think that's pretty good. I think that'll work for C tier. And then Chicago, San Francisco, Toronto, Seattle, and D tier. That seems fine. And then an F tier, Detroit, Kansas City, Miami, and Baltimore. Yeah. All right. Here it is. This is the final. You can screenshot it. This is our final power rankings tier list. S tier, 1 Houston, 2 Los Angeles, 3 Minnesota. A tier, 4 New York, 5 Tampa Bay, 6 Chicago, 7 Boston, 8 Philadelphia. B tier, 9 Milwaukee, 10 Atlanta, 11 St. Louis, 12 Cleveland. C tier, 13 San Diego, 14 Oakland, 15 New York, 16 Colorado, 17 Cincinnati, 18 Anaheim, 19 Pittsburgh, 20 Washington, 21 Texas, 22 Arizona. And then D tier, 23 Chicago, 24 San Francisco, 25 Toronto, 26 Seattle. And then F tier, 27 Detroit, 28 Kansas City, 29 Miami, and 30 Baltimore. My predictions for final playoff pictures will be Houston winning the AL West, Minnesota winning the AL Central, and New York winning the AL East, with Tampa Bay and Boston in the wild card for the AL. Then for the NL, it'll be Los Angeles winning the West, Chicago winning the Central, Philadelphia winning the East. And then between these 3 teams, 2 of them will make the wild card game. I'm not really sure which 2. I'll just say Milwaukee and Atlanta for now, but the Cardinals could almost definitely just jump into that. These 3 teams are pretty interchangeable. They're all very similar. That's my final start of June 2019 tier list. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.